Imagine commanding an entire nation. Your motorcade shuts down highways, your signature moves armies, your words shake global markets. Now imagine trading that power for a prison uniform. In the past, world leaders were almost untouchable, kings without crowns. Presidents were shielded by power. But in recent years, something dramatic has changed. Across continents, Asia, South America, Europe, presidents and former presidents are being arrested, convicted, and sent to prison. Some for corruption, some for attempting to cling to power, some for abusing emergency authority. This is the story of leaders who ruled nations and then lost everything. 1. Yoon Suk-yeol. South Korea has an unusual political reputation. Unlike many countries where former leaders quietly retire, South Korea prosecutes them. And in one of the most shocking political collapses in modern Asian history, former President Yoon Suk-yeol was convicted of insurrection-related charges after attempting to impose emergency authority during a national crisis. What started as a political standoff escalated into accusations of overreach and abuse of power. Prosecutors argued that his actions threatened constitutional order. The court agreed. The sentence? Life imprisonment. Let that sink in. A former commander-in-chief, now facing the rest of his life in a prison cell. South Korea has jailed former presidents before, but this case showed something even more dramatic. Even the highest office in the land is not immune to the judiciary. 2. President Jair Bolsonaro. Brazil's 2022 election left the country deeply divided. After losing power, former President Jair Bolsonaro faced investigations into alleged attempts to overturn election results. The allegations were explosive, plotting to undermine democratic transfer of power, encouraging institutional disruption, challenging the legitimacy of electoral systems. Brazil's Supreme Court conducted months of investigation. The final ruling was historic, a 27-year prison sentence. That's longer than many violent criminal sentences. For supporters, it was political persecution. For critics, it was accountability. But the message from Brazil's judiciary was unmistakable. Democracy must be protected, even if that means imprisoning a former president. 3. Nicolas Sarkozy. France is one of the world's most established democracies. Few expected to see a former French president behind bars, but Nicolas Sarkozy became the first in modern French history to receive a custodial sentence for corruption and illegal campaign financing. Investigators uncovered allegations of influence peddling and improper financial arrangements. After years of legal battles, the court sentenced him to prison. The symbolism was powerful. France, a founding pillar of European democracy, had demonstrated that political elites are not above the law. The fall was dramatic, from global summits and diplomatic negotiations to courtroom verdicts and prison procedures. 4. Pedro Castillo. If there's one country that has turned presidential office into a legal minefield, it's Peru. In the past 2 decades, multiple former presidents have faced conviction. Pedro Castillo attempted to dissolve Congress during a political crisis. Opponents called it a self-coup. Security forces arrested him the same day. He was later sentenced to more than a decade in prison. But he wasn't the only president to be held accountable for his actions. Former presidents Ollanta Humala and Alejandro Toledo were also convicted in massive corruption investigations linked to bribery scandals involving multinational construction firms. In Peru, anti-corruption prosecutors became powerful political forces, and the pattern became clear: leave office, face trial. For many Peruvians, it represented long overdue accountability. For others, it reflected deep political instability. But one thing is undeniable: the Peruvian presidency has become one of the riskiest political jobs in the world. 5. Imran Khan. Imran Khan entered politics as a national hero, a cricket legend promising to end corruption. But after losing power, he faced a wave of legal cases. Charges ranged from corruption to mishandling classified information. Courts convicted him. He was sentenced to prison. His supporters flooded the streets in protest. His critics argued the legal process was justified. Pakistan has a long history of political turbulence, where former prime ministers are jailed, exiled, or removed. Khan's imprisonment became another chapter in that cycle. In Pakistan, power can vanish overnight. But here's the bigger question. Is this the rise of accountability or the weaponization of justice? In some countries, stronger institutions mean leaders can finally be prosecuted. In others, critics argue courts are being used as political tools. But there is a global shift happening. For decades, former leaders expected immunity. Now, the political risk doesn't end when the term does. The presidency no longer guarantees protection. In some countries, it might guarantee prosecution. From Seoul to Brasilia, from Paris to Lima, from Islamabad to prison cells, these cases show a new political era, an era where presidents can fall, where power can evaporate, where history can judge, and courts can sentence. The real question isn't whether leaders can go to prison, it's whether this trend strengthens democracy or pushes countries deeper into division. And that may define global politics for the next decade.